Hello everybody, today we are checking out the commander deck or pre-constructed commander deck Corrupting Influence, and yeah, let's jump right into it, check out what this deck has to offer and if we can have some fun with it. Alright, there we go. Let's take a good look and talk about some cards. Okay. Again, we have a collector booster sample pack. I will open that in the end of the video. We have, again, a little introduction to the deck, tokens, and here's the actual deck. Let's open this bad boy up. Let's see what's all in this deck. Therefore, I need to get it open. Okay. It seems like we are going somewhere. All right, there we go. Let's put all of that aside. Let's jump right into it. Okay, so the front commander is Ixal, Scion of Atraxa. It's an absent commander with Flying, Vigilance, and Toxic 2. Toxic 2, if this creature connects, the opponent that got damage dealt gains toxic counters equal to the amount of toxic. And it has the corrupted mechanic, so at the beginning of your end step, each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters exiles the top card of their library face down. You may look and play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. And you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. So a cool value engine. You have to get that corrupted going, and I think that Ixal, depending on the mana base, we will check it out later, might not be the creature that you bring out on turn 4, but you will still be able to apply a lot of those toxic counters throughout the game. And yeah, it just generates a lot of value. The more resources you don't have to spend from your deck, the better it is to win in the long run. So pretty cool face commander. The alternative commander is Wishgrass, the Doom Hive. And this commander costs 5, Menace and Toxic 1. And it says when Wishgrass, the Doom Hive, enters the battlefield, create 3 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1. And this creature can't block. Wishgrass gets +1/+1 for each poison counter your opponents have. So what I do have to say immediately is that depending on your mood and how you want to play it, you can either take the control approach and the value approach and just try to win in the long run, or with Wishgrass you can decide, okay, I want to play a little bit more of a beatdown game here and just rush my opponents down with this very big creature. I hope that there are still some trample enablers or something like that to make Wishgrass a real threat. I mean, Menace still great, but overall I think that Ixal will be the commander that you play more often. But yeah, if you want to take a slighter, more beatdown approach, Wishgrass is the card to pick here. All right, so these two are our commanders. And then, oh my god, this card, Norn's Core Master. 5 mana, 5/4 flying, first strike. Whenever a commander you control enters the battlefield or attacks, proliferate. I saw this card, and this needs to go into every Giada deck that is out there. It is an angel, so it synergizes with Giada. And Giada is also a creature where you're like, okay, 2/2 flying, this can most likely always attack, second main, tap for anything, and you always proliferate. You distribute all of those counters to all of your angels that you're playing, and Norn's Core Master is definitely a card must have for that deck. Also for a lot of other different decks, because this text line, whenever a commander you control enters or attacks, proliferate, can be used in so many different decks. So I expect a lot from this card. Flying first strike, also a great blocker. So this is definitely a powerhouse in my opinion. Then we have Norn's Decree, an enchantment. Interesting card. Whenever 1 or more creatures an opponent controls deal combat damage to you, that opponent gets a poison counter. Whenever a player attacks, if 1 or more players being attacked are poisoned, the attacking player draws a card. So this is a card that wants to make your opponents fight against each other and make them not attack you. I don't know if it works that well. I think there's a lot of text here on this card, but overall you're also helping out your opponents. So by drawing them cards, I don't think that it is a real reasonable card, but I get the point of playing this card in this deck here. Overall, I think it's really cool, a little bit of politics in here involved, but yeah, overall, we will see how that card will turn out in the future. Then we continue with Gav's Summons. Return up to one target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It also has Corrupted. For each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters, as you cast a spell, put up to one target creature from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. This is a massive recursion spell. For 4 mana, you can get at least one creature, which is already a pretty good trade if you're not playing like cards like Animate Dead. And so you are already making a profit from here, because a lot of the other reanimation spells cost at least 5 mana, and this only has upside with the Corrupted mechanic. So super dope card. We have Phyresis Outbreak, sorcery. Each opponent gets a poison counter. Then each creature your opponents control gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each poison counter its controller has. Wow. Also a really scary one, so at least it's a -1/-1. What I like is that it is really limiting to your opponents. This is really helpful, and overall I think a good card, and a really good card here in this deck. Then we come to the Contaminant Grafter, a 5 mana Phyrexian Druid, a 5/5, Trample and Toxic 1, and whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to one or more players, proliferate. Scary, really scary. And Corrupted, at the beginning of your end step, if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, draw a card. Then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. There's so much text on this card, it does so much, and in my opinion for so little. It itself has Trample, Toxic 1, it's a 5/5 for 5 mana with all of that upside. This is a real powerhouse in my opinion. We come to Glitter's Retriever, a 6 mana Phyrexian Beast, 6/6, haste and toxic free, that's a lot, and it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, Corrupted. When it dies, exile it. When you do, return up to X target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, where X is the number of opponents who have 3 or more poison counters. Alright, so in the best case, if you're playing with 4 players, you might get back 3 creatures to your hand. That's a lot, that's good, take it. We have Wormcrake, sorcery, Corrupted. Create an XX green Phyrexian Worm creature token with Trample and Toxic 1, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast a spell. Then for each opponent with 3 or more poison counters, you create another one of those tokens with flashback 10. That is a lot. At least the token has Trample and Toxic, so might be really good card. I think it's very pricey. I mean, you get a lot of very big creatures, but for the real late game where you might be in a 1v1 scenario in Commander, maybe not the best card. We continue with Glistening Sphere, 3 mana artifact. It enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters, you proliferate. It has 1 mana at 1 mana of any color, so of any mana of any one color. And yeah, it also has Corrupted. At 3 mana of any one color, activate only if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters. This can be really good. Any one color, gotta keep that in mind. But an interesting mana rock, also because on ETB you can proliferate. It's cool. Fumigate, who doesn't know this board wipe, 5 mana destroy creatures. You gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way. Norn's Annex, okay, an artifact that can be paid with Phyrexian mana, and creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays Phyrexian for each of those creatures. Alright. We have Phyrexian Rebirth, 6 mana sorcery, destroy all creatures, then create an XX colorless Phyrexian Horror artifact creature token, where X is the number of creatures destroyed this way. So you might wipe the board, end up with a really big Phyrexian Horror, or you might just wipe the board and get a small one, but overall, depending on the situation, very expensive board wipe, but I still expect to see some ramp in this deck, so we will see. We continue with Windborne Muse, 4 mana to 3 flying. Creatures can attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. Okay, so a little protection spell or protection creature. Painful Truths, 3 mana sorcery Converge. You draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of colors of mana spent to cast a spell. So in the best case, you draw 3 cards and you lose 3 life. We continue with the Phyrexian Swarmlord. Really cool card. It got a reprint in this deck. 6 mana. Infect this time. It doesn't deal damage to creatures or deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters and to players in the form of poison counters. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green Phyrexian insect creature token with Infect for each poison counter your opponents have. Infect and Toxic synergize with each other, so it's a great reprint here in this deck. Scavenging Ooze helps a lot with all of the graveyard shenanigans that are out there, and I think it's played in like every deck that has green in it, simply to be able to interact with great graveyards. So we all know this one. Culling Ritual, alright, this is a really good card, especially when it goes more into the competitive direction. You destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less, so you can blow up a lot of these different mana rocks out there. And then you can build your own constellation of black or green mana for each permanent destroyed this way. Really good card. Merciless Eviction, 6 mana sorcery, choose 1. So not the slider budget version of Farewell, but depending on what you want to get rid of, it's enough for that, so we take it. Chromatic Lantern, alright, this is a good one. Lands you control have add 1 mana of any color, so as soon as this one is on the battlefield, your lands tap for everything that you need, and you have add 1 mana of any color itself. Really good card. Ooh, Canopy Vista. Forest Plains, keep that in mind, always look out for the land types that your lands have. Canopy Vista enters the battlefield tapped, unless you control 2 or more basic lands. Dope. Exotic Orchard. Then we have Fortified Village. This is the reveal land for Celestia colors, so you can reveal a forest or plains card from your hand. Then it enters, or it doesn't enter tapped. Khan's Bastion. Alright, I think this card got a few reprints, but this is a land, should be played in a lot more decks in my opinion. 4 mana, tap, proliferate. Yeah, fits perfectly in here. Then we have the reveal land for Golgari combination. Then we have the reveal land for the Orzhov combination. We have a Sungrass Prairie, Temple of Melody, the Scryland, Temple of Plenty, the Scryland, and Temple of Silence, the Scryland. I think they did a really good job with the mana base for a pre-constructed deck, especially since we are playing 3 colors. But looking at all those lands, you might not have the most explosive start with these lands, but you are anyways a little bit more of a mid-range to late game deck. So I think the mana base is definitely okay here for a Precon deck. Ghostly Prison, Enchantment. Creatures can't attack you unless the controller plays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. Super dope. So this deck really wants to avoid opponents from attacking you. You're working with poison counters, so yeah, you will most likely take a lot of the aggression on the table. Grateful Apparition. I remember when, I believe that card came out in War of the Spark, and it's such a good card. When it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, proliferate. I think this text line shouldn't be underestimated, and I think it's a good uncommon. Bilious Skull Dweller, 1 mana, Death Touch, Toxic 1. Yep, this is the one creature, or this is the creature that you want to bring out turn 1, and it starts distributing those counters, and then you just keep going with the Proliferate. Super dope card. Blight Betty Red, we all know it by now, and yep, does a job. South to Plowshares, definitely white premium removal in this deck. Really cool, I take it. Alright, what do we have here? Chaos of Phyrexia, 5 mana sorcery. Target player draws 3 cards, loses 3 life, and gets 3 poison counters. This is not a good card in my opinion. I mean, because it's always limited to the targeted player, You cannot even target yourself. And giving your opponent free cards, I don't think it's that good. Though I do have to say, at 5 mana, you might be already at the point where this is the finisher for a player. Simply casting this one on the player that is already at 7 or above poison counters, then you just finish him off. Might be okay, but on the first look, I don't think it's that good of a card. Then we have Ichorets, 3 mana infect creature. When it enters the battlefield, each player gets a poison counter. This includes yourself, but this is a good free drop, especially in this deck, also with infect. We have Feed the Infection. This is from Phyrexia, All Will Be One, also with the symbol of Phyrexia, All Will Be One. And you draw 3 cards and you lose 3 life. Corrupted. Each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters loses 3 life. That's okay. A little bit pricey. You want to do different things on turn 4 in my opinion, but okay. Knight's Whisper. This is a banger. 2 mana sorcery. You draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. Perfect. This is what you want to do on turn 2. I like it. Plague Stinger. Flying Infect. 1/1 for 2 mana. That's okay. Good one. Then we have Infectious Inquiry. 3 mana, you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. Each opponent gets a poison counter. Also a way how you can get those poison counters going. We have Pestilent Siphoner, flying Toxic 1, 2 mana, 1/1 flying. So you have a lot of flying creatures, so you definitely need to have an eye on which of your opponents has probably or tends to have a lot of flying creatures, because this is the way how they can block all of your creatures. And yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you can get around those. Beast Within. Really good removal here in green. I take it. We have Blight Mamba. 2 mana, 1/1 infect, and it can be regenerated, okay? So far I haven't seen much for graveyard protection, so yeah, you are vulnerable to that, but okay. Carrion Call. 4 mana instant, okay. Create 2 1/1 green Phyrexian insect creature tokens with infect. This is cool. I haven't seen much instant interaction so far here in this deck, and this is a card I'm a real big fan of instant token creation. Yep, happy to see that card. A little bit pricey, but we will see how it turns out. There is the ramp that I was talking about. I was missing this for quite a while now, since we are working our way through this deck. Cultivate, classic, ramp card. Evolution Sage, this is a banger. Landfall, whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, proliferate. Yeah, I don't have to say much about that. He comes down on turn 3, turn 4, you can maybe cultivate already. You have dealt a bit of toxic to your opponents. You can pretty quickly get to the point where Corrupted is enabled. So Evolution Sage definitely helps. Mycosynth Fiend, 3 mana, gets +1/+1 for each poison counter your opponents have. Okay, so this can be a really big beater, but do have to say there's no trample on this creature. I haven't seen any trample enablers so far here. So yeah, just a big creature. Noxious Revival, also a way more competitive card here in this deck. You can pay Phyrexian mana to use this card and put target card from a graveyard on top of its owner's library. So you can use it either for yourself, or you can prevent your opponent from drawing a win con that they put on top because it's from a graveyard. But this is, yeah, probably a really rare case. But overall, Noxious Revival, really good card. That Emergence, also a card from Phyrexia, All Will Be One, and yeah, does what it has to do. This can help when I've talked about that there isn't much protection here from board wipes. But this one, yeah, this will help to recover. We have Virident Corruptor, Infect, 3 mana, Phyrexian Elf Shaman. And when it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact, okay. Yeah, still an infect creature. Rasca's Fall. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker and gets a poison counter. I like these cards. I'm also a big fan of Soul Shadow. And this is why Rasca's Fall definitely, yeah, has a reasonable place. It's a bit pricey, but yeah. Moldavine Reclamation. Whenever a creature you control dies, you gain 1 life and draw a card. There is, I'm trying to remember how the card is called. I think Deathreap Ritual is a card that I prefer to play because, well, Deathreap Ritual is limited to 1 card draw each turn. But Moldavine Reclamation costs 1 more. and it's limited to whenever a creature you control dies, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Of course, if you have, if the board gets wiped, which this deck is vulnerable to, it won't be easy for you to recover. So when you then have Moldavine Reclamation out before you really develop your board, this is a great way to come back because you will be drawing a lot of cards. Though I do have to say, for 5 mana, it's pricey, but I see the reason for this card here in the deck. Mortify, premium Orzhov removal here. All right. Putrefy, also premium removal here in Golgari. Then we continue with some mana rocks. We have Arcane Signet, Commander Sphere. We have a Contagion Clasp. Okay. When it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature for 4 mana. We can proliferate. Okay. Don't think it's that good of an artifact, even in this deck here. You have Khan's Bastion for the proliferate, and it is simply, yeah, way cheaper in my opinion. We have a Felwar Stone for some more ramp. We have a Golgari Signet, Mana Rock, nice. Grafted Exoskeleton. Wow, this is an awesome reprint in here. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has Infect. When Grafted Exoskeleton becomes unattached from a permanent, sacrifice that permanent. It is pricey, but I do have to say that, yeah, simply as it is, the Infect and Toxic, they can kind of like stack together, and this is, yeah, a really good enabler. Also a great reprint here in this deck. Take it. We have Ichor Mir, Infect, and when it becomes blocked, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. For 2 mana, I think it's okay. Yep, it is okay, in my opinion. We have Plague Mir, also Infect mana. I see that there are several Mirs in here. You gotta keep that in mind when you want to build the new Mir deck with the, I think it's called Urtet. Is it Urtet? Yeah, I think so. We have a classic Soul Ring. We have Trailblazer's Boots. Okay, equipped creature has non-basic land walk. So it cannot be blocked as long as defending player controls a non-basic land, which in Commander you will most likely have pretty often. Then we have a Bojuka Bog, also a great card to interact with the opponent's graveyard. Well, not really interact, but to take care of it. Command Tower, all right. We have a Croson Verge. It enters tapped. You can generate a colorless with it. You can sacrifice it, search a library for a forest card and a plains card, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Okay. Not the most attractive land on the first look, but you can grab a forest and a plains card. It's not limited to basic land cards. Gotta keep that in mind. Mirrored Landscape, Path of Ancestry. We continue with a Cankerbloom here. We know this one from Phyrexia or will be one. Then we have a Centipede Citadel. Okay. Tainted Field. I'm a big fan of these cards because for an uncommon slot, and if you control a swamp, it taps for Orzhov. I like that combination. I'm hoping to see the other lands, the Tainted Woods, for example. We have Expand the Sphere, Sorcery, 4 mana. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. Keep in mind, 6 is a lot. Put up to 2 land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If you put fewer than 2 lands on the battlefield this way, proliferate a number of times equal to the difference. Alright, the thing is, it's up to 2 lands. So even if you see quite a few lands in the top 6 of your library, you can decide to not put any lands onto the battlefield and then simply proliferate twice. This might also be an interesting finisher. There it is, Tainted Woods, alright. We have Noxious Assault. Creatures you control get +2/+2 till end of turn. Whenever a creature blocks this turn, its controller gets a poison counter. Yeah, an overrun effect. You have a lot of small creatures, so this might be interesting. Unnatural Restoration. Cool card in my opinion. It returns a permanent, so you cannot get back any instant or sorcery cards, but I still think it's a good card. We have Venomous Brutalizer, Toxic free for 4 mana 4/4, that's good. And when it enters the battlefield, you may pay 1 and a green if you do Proliferate. This creature is okay. Mirror Convert, Toxic, and tap, pay to life, add 1 mana of any color, okay. We have Phyrexian Atlas, add 1 mana of any color, and it has Corrupted. Whenever Phyrexian Atlas becomes tapped, each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters loses 1 life. I see why this card is in here, though I do have to say, yeah, gotta keep in mind, You're not trying to win by beating down your opponents with combat damage. So yeah, we will see how this one turns out. Okay, then we have quite a few plains, quite a few swamps, and quite a few forests. Okay, so I do have to say, from the first look, the deck definitely has a lot of synergies. What I'm really missing is a rebuild from board wipes, which you will see in a lot of cases. I do like that you can decide between the two commanders and simply consider, okay, which way do I want to play this game today? Do I want to be a bit more on the beatdown side, or do I want to be on the value side and generate a lot of value? I like that. And yes, there is a lot of different synergies in this deck. I maybe will also simply have to play it. There is a lot of this premium removal in those different colors, Putrefy, Mortify. I did like the land base in this deck. Where is it again? Where you had this. Grafted Exoskeleton, also great reprint. Also the different mana rocks is a great addition here in this deck. And yeah, Noxus Revival is definitely a banger. Beast Within, also premium card here. Knight's Whisper, a really good card. Swords to Plowshares, all of these premium removal cards or interaction cards are in the stack. That's really cool. Also cards like Ghostly Prison is something that's really good for a lot of different collections. Here the different, okay, Scrylands, we can talk about them. But the Prairie, the different Reveal Lands, Khan's Bastion is definitely a banger in here. Reveal Lands, and then also a Canopy Vista. Chromatic Lantern, also a really good card in here. So I think that even though on the first look it might be a little bit hard, but I think the mana base is definitely okay in here. Culling Ritual, great card. Phyrexian Swarmlord, also really cool. And overall, I do have to say this deck looks really interesting. There are a lot of banger cards in here. And yeah, overall, I do have to say we will see how this one turns out. I think that the Rebellion Rising deck was a bit faster and also had way more ways to refill your hand. But overall, you will have to see how this one checks out. All right, and last but not least, we come to the Collector Booster Sample Pack. And let's see if I'm a little bit more lucky today. Okay, let's go. We have Monumental Corruption, 5 mana sorcery, borderless. Target player draws X cards and loses X life, where X is the number of artifacts you control. Okay, interesting. A little bit pricey, but you can draw a lot or lose a lot. And okay, interesting card. Then we have another Urabrask Anointer. All right, I take it. Overall, I hope that you guys enjoyed this unboxing of the Corrupting Influence, and let me know what you think about this deck. And then I would say, see you in the next video. Goodbye, guys.